Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are viewing us today. This is Cassandra Edwards with the Chosen Few Financial Empowerment and Wellness Workshops. We are so excited to have with us today Mr. James Shad. James, why don't you introduce yourself? What's going on, buddy?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Wanted to wish you all well. Hope you all are staying safe. Saying thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share who I am and more importantly, what I do for our community. But I am James Shad, lifelong resident of Columbia, South Carolina. I've been married for the past 20 years, going on 21 this coming June. And my wife and I have four beautiful girls, Morgan, Mary, Cameron, and Jamie. I have three that are in high school now and one that is in elementary school. So I'm a husband, I'm a father, and by trade, I am an attorney here in Columbia, South Carolina. I have a statewide practice. It's called the Shad Law Firm. I've owned it for the past 14 years, been practicing law for the past 20, however. Just glad to serve others. Not only in the court, but also outside of court. And I'm a church going man. I attend Journey United Methodist Church, where I serve in various capacities and also serve on several boards around the state, but specifically here in Richland County.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be finally doing this with you. Um, when I think you were definitely one of the first um, people of color who were working in law here when
Right.
I first came to Columbia, which was in 2005. So I'm not really sure who mentioned your name first, and I didn't really have a need for an attorney at the time, but just moving and shaking around Columbia, building relationships, and saw some of your billboards, and then
Okay.
met a couple of people who had used you. And actually, it's kind of an oversight. I really wanted to ask you to have a couple of your clients come on and kind of talk about you because your clients love you. I'm like, that's the people's champion right there. That's the people. So I
Well, thank
definitely,
you so much. I'm very grateful to them too. And believe it or not, and as we know as business owners, the best advertising is word of mouth. And when you have someone who has had an experience with you and with you serving them, and for them to then share that information with their family, friends, colleagues, loved ones, I'm eternally grateful for that. My little hashtag is that I'm your family's lawyer because that's what I want to do. I want to not only represent you, represent your grandparents, your mom, your dad, your children, your cousins. I want to be that resource for them, and I've been blessed to do that. And you're right. I wish we would have been able to get some clients to speak on it, but of course we have social media. We've had plenty of reviews on our law firm page where folks have shared that we've done a good job taking care of them. Now, the interesting thing too, saying is that, I guess I've gotten old enough now. I've been practicing long enough that I've actually started attending graduations for children who I've actually gotten custody, in terms of parents and who may have gone through a divorce. And the kids were toddlers at the time that I first
wow.
represented them. And now they're graduating high school and, sending me information about their college success. So I've been in the game for quite some time now, and it's just rewarding to kind of help not only assist people who may go through a divorce, but I'm really helping families, and that's what it's really all about.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk a little bit. We'll definitely get more in depth with the technical business law stuff a little bit later. But I wanted to. I wanted to. It's always important to me to make sure that people know who you are as a person, because of course, as entrepreneurs, it's easy for us to kind of get engulfed in our businesses and what we do, what every day looks like. But ultimately, with entrepreneurship, we know that we're all people first. So I
Absolutely.
definitely want to ask you some questions first that are more specific to you, so people know, okay, who is this guy and what is he about? What do you do outside of the boardroom, outside the courtroom? And so, because I just found you to be one of the most intriguing and most um, well, you strike me as a person who is all about community, not just about making your money. And I've always seen that to be true about you. So I wanted to have you talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that you're involved in, and then I'll get to some more of the family stuff as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I appreciate you saying that. And you never know who's watching you, but you always get, feedback from people who, forget about being a lawyer. They just say, Shad is a good guy. I'm called Shad all the time. He's a good guy, and he cares for people. And that's how I am. And I got to say, I got it honest. I am the child of divorce. My mom was a very young divorcee, and she was raising myself and my brother. And she struck out on her own, had to pick up the pieces. So she ended up going to college some years later, got her
Mhm.
degree at USC, was involved with insurance for a while. Her name is Laureen Davis. Shout out to my mom. And
Awesome.
my brother, CJ Willis, who's also an entrepreneur. And so she raised, two young boys, but she always made sure that we were about service. She had us in church. She had us always volunteering in the church, playing those roles, being on the usher board and that sort of thing. But one thing that she really taught me at a very young age is that, we're on this earth to serve others. So she served on several boards, volunteered, Big Brothers and Big Sisters. She was part of the Columbia Chamber, took me around, taught me how to, to use proper etiquette and that sort of thing, and to meet people. And so through her service, I was able to get a bird's eye view of what it meant to give back and be grateful for what you have. So I'll share just a very quick story about, and I've been serving on several boards and that sort of thing because it was what I needed to do to sort of help our community. But what struck me was several years ago when I was actually representing a young man who was a juvenile, and his brother was high up in the gang hierarchy. So he inherited his brother's friends, but he also inherited his brother's enemies. So life was pretty bad for him, and he happened to be incarcerated at the time. So after we get through the legal stuff, I started talking to him sort of um, man to young man, and he said that he couldn't see himself living past the age of 22, given the lifestyle that he was in. And I'm like, you're not even thinking about getting married, having children, retirement. You're not seeing your life like we all were taught to do, to live out the American dream. And so I knew I had to do something different. And so I began putting in place a mentoring program because I couldn't do enough as an attorney. I wanted to help, in particular, African American males to see that there's more to it and to provide those examples for them. And so it started out initially as Isaac's promise. We know the covenant that God had with Abraham. Well, Isaac also received that same promise, and he was marked for death. We know that Abraham was supposed to go and sacrifice him, but at the very end, he was saved. And so that's what I wanted to do, was try to say that we also need to promise our young men that they're not going to be marked for death, that they're going to be saved. But we have to provide examples for that. So it ended up morphing into what I have now, which is the Villager by J. Shad 3. You
Okay.
can see that on your Facebook page. You can link on to that. And so what we do is to provide opportunities and experiences for the entire community. It's not just a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to raise a community. We have to get back to the community aspect and stop looking at the dog eat dog world and be so involved with individualism. We need to get back to the sense of community where neighbor is helping neighbor. So I provide those experiences for men, for women, and then of course for our youth. In particular, for our African American males, I've created a monthly meeting called For Brothers Only. We also have a group me chat where we get together. We provide a safe space digitally, but also face to face. Of course, with the way that the virus is going now, we aren't able to meet face to face. We meet every first Monday at the House of Hathor, but now we had our first virtual meeting on last night, where it was a chance for us to just kind of let things off of our chest, um, grow together, empower one another, give encouraging words. And it's been extremely rewarding for me and helpful to me personally as an individual, but also to make sure that we are still connected, so we're together, even though we are physically separated from each other. And a lot is going to come out of this. I really do believe that we must continue to serve our community, serve each even more so now. There's been some things that I've done in the past, assisting, our shelter challenge persons over these last 2 summers, providing water to them, collecting donations from folks with regard to sleeping bags, making sure that they're taken care of, because they are oftentimes the forgotten folks.
Oh
But I
yeah.
feel that we're called to assist them as well. And then I serve on other boards and youth serving organizations as well, trying to stop um, the school to prison pipeline as well, those types of things. So, it's very rewarding. You may not always see the end result of what you do. You just keep planting that field and keep sowing, and hopefully someone will get the harvest, will reap that harvest.
Right, absolutely. So I'm sure, I mean, even just seeing just seeing the life of one person change because of your efforts makes all of it worth it. So I mean, I just appreciate what you're doing so much with that. Um,
Thank you.
I can definitely relate with that as well because I'm from the inner city in Richmond, Virginia, and I have a twin brother, and I mean, we're 40 now, but we talk a lot about now how when he was younger, he didn't see himself living past 21 years old.
Mm,
So even now at 40, he still talks about, with challenges and different struggles that men encounter, not just men of color, but men in general, some of
yeah.
the challenges that you guys face. He's like, man, I mean, I'm on borrowed time. Anything over 21, I'm on borrowed time.
Wow.
So, it's really disheartening to, as a woman and as a mother of two sons, just to hear um, just how hopeless the future can seem to some people. And, I'm always talking about mindset. So, what would you say? I've got two, it's actually, I guess, a two-part question for
Hmm.
that. How important is mindset as you're working with these young men? And, what advice do you have for young people in general, people who are going through struggle and challenges? How important is mindset? Then I ask you the other part after that.
Sure. Well, mindset is absolutely key. I've been going through my own personal development, been more strategic about it these last couple of years, and I've discovered in terms of mindset, we throw that term out often, but
Hmm.
it is absolutely true. You have to break the word down, mindset. You have to set your mind on things that are positive, things that are redeeming, things that are necessary, and kind of weed out the negativity. You can become conditioned to the environment that you are in, and you decide to just yield to that. Just say, well, this is the way things are. This is, I was born the wrong way. I'm a part of the wrong race, or I was born in the wrong zip code, or lived in the wrong zip code. And because of that, or I may have faced certain trauma that has informed who I am now. But I reject that. Just because
Yes.
this is where you are now, or this is what your history has been, does not mean that this has to be your destiny. And I believe that when you become more aware of who you are and whose you are, then you can become empowered, you can be motivated, and it all begins with your mind. I believe that the self-conscious is there for you to feed on a daily basis, so that then it will feed you later on. You can respond to what your self-conscious says. We use that term a lot, but garbage in, garbage out. If you keep sending yourself, keep going to the idiot box and, and rely upon what other folks tell you or entertain you, we got to get away from entertainment. We need to get back to education. I believe in
Yes.
lifelong learning. I believe that if you apply yourself with the knowledge that you're able to receive, then you can absolutely change your mindset, and you can change the trajectory of the way that you need to go. Now, with our young people in particular, there's peer pressure. It can be negative peer pressure, but it can also be positive peer pressure. If we can continue to encourage our young people to surround themselves with positive people, their mindset can actually change. Birds of a feather, birds of a feather truly do flock together, and we need to be more eagles rather than chickens. We can
That's right.
soar, we can fly. We absolutely don't need to be on the ground with our head down, trying to look for whatever somebody's going to leave on the ground for us. So we have to do that. We have to stay connected, and we can go much further if we are stronger. And it all begins with the mind. You have to build up your mind. It's an organ. The brain is an organ, but it's just like a muscle. You have to continue to nourish it. You have to continue to feed it and exercise it, and you can absolutely go far. Mindset is going to be there. You can have a powerful negative mindset, and you're going to
Absolutely.
reap the poor benefits of it, but it's still powerful. We just have to make sure that we know how to harness that mindset and put it in the way that it should go, and we'll be better off, not only individually but as a community. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for adding that too. I talk a lot about mindset, and you've got your default mindset your and your intentional mindset. You know, and that's just so important. Um, so my second part of that question is, as it relates to mindset, as it relates to raising, I guess I could say, I don't like to use the word successful, but children who are making progressive moves, because success looks differently depending on who you ask it, right?
Absolutely.
But positive minded, open minded, progressive, progress minded children. What advice do you have for parents, especially of young men?
Well, as parents, I believe that we have the obligation not to necessarily create robots. We're not creating them in the image of ourselves, but we have an obligation as parents because we only have a certain period of time while we can still groom them to make sure that we put into them that hopefully is going to reap good benefits. And so because we have the obligation, we have to take it seriously. We can't be negligent parents. You can be present in the home, but you can still be an absent parent, especially for our fathers. They must be present. They have to engage with their children. They have to stay connected to them, and they have to provide positive examples for them because you are their heroes. You are their sheroes. They're going to look up to you and they're going to mimic what you do. They're always watching us. So it's incumbent upon us, especially for our males, as fathers and the mothers as well. But we have to make sure that our young men are guided the right way. We are simply guides in this journey that they have. We're supposed to try to make sure, not to protect them to the point that they don't see that life is real, but we need to kind of be those guideposts to make sure that they're still walking the straight and narrow and making sure that they are, going where they need to go. Let them stump their knee every once in a while so that way they can get that tough, hard lesson, but then be that resource for them to and provide that advice and counsel that they need. When you have a young person who is unguided, who is left to fend for themselves, who may be surrounded by negative activity or negative energy, they're going to go the wrong route. And then you have to be able to look in your mirror one day to say, I should have, could have done that. I don't want you to have that conversation with yourself. As long as you kind of guide them along the way. I know it's hard sometimes, especially if you're no longer in the relationship with the parent of the other, the other parent. But make sure that you put the focus on that young person and be there for them and check, and don't accept the fact, well, how was your day? Oh, it was good. No, go a little further. Ask them, deeper questions. How was it good? What made it right? If you had a bad day, because what you want to do is keep the lines of communication there, and it's a two-way street. Don't assume that they're going to come to you and always ask for advice. You need to involve yourself and ask them those questions. But especially for our young men, you got to make sure that they, especially around the age of 11, 12, or 13, they're no longer interested in school. They might not necessarily be getting the good grades like they did in elementary school. The challenge of going to school and the structure of that can be tough. And then they start getting labeled. The people who are in that school structure may not how they act out. Very.
Right. Hold on, we're getting hung up a little bit on. I don't know if it's my end or it's a internet connection thing we got going on. You're frozen. Hold on one moment for us. Hopefully that's going to come on back and catch up here. Ray or Bob, can you guys, are you guys still live? You guys can still hear us?
Yeah, and I can hear you, Cassandra. I see James is frozen on my screen,
Okay.
but he's moving just fine.
Okay. All right. His line must have gone out for one moment. All right, and we're back. So James, we were talking about, or you were speaking on just the environment, the mindset of our young people, and especially with the young men. I personally, of course, I'm always about women's empowerment and everything like that. But what I find to be the case, on the whole, I find, especially in the African American community, that in most instances where we've got single parenting going on, or at least it's been my experience, that mothers raise their daughters to be independent and they coddle their sons. Can you connect with that? Is that kind of consistent with some of the things you've been seeing working with young people?
Yeah, I have seen that, and that is unfortunate. We raise our daughters, but we love our sons, and what that means is, from the very beginning, you're training your daughter, getting her to play with dolls, you're showing her how to cook. And so you're preparing her to take care of herself and to be self-sufficient. However, with your sons, you're sending them out. It doesn't matter what time of night they get to come back home. You know, they don't have, they don't, they get to choose whether they want to go to church, you know, on Sunday, and then but you still take your daughters there because you want them to be good. You want them to be protected. But remember, those girls are going to need a mate at some point. And so if that always is the case, they're going to be, unfortunately, unequally yoked with someone who is not self-sufficient. And so, you know, there was a movie that we had, and I actually did this with one of my villager events. We did a showing of Baby Boy. And if you
Mm.
recall Baby Boy, you know, he unfortunately was still stuck in the developmental phase, although he was chronologically a man. And, you know, it was poor relationships that he was involved with. And, you know, it was just not good. And then he was, you know, he had a child young, and he was incapable of caring not only for himself, but also for his child, his children. And so we kind of have that mindset. And what it does is it creates women who are strong and independent, and that can be a threat to men who have not been able to get further in life in terms of maturity. We've gotten away from the rites of passage that we used to have, where to become a man, you had to do certain things and to be accepted by the community to do certain things. We don't have that anymore. We have kids raising themselves. They're involved with gang activity, negative influences, but our young ladies are okay. They're prim and proper. We've shaped them into what they need to be. And so the mindset is different. And so then that unfortunately causes unhealthy relationships. And so, you know, these young ladies who were playing with dolls, you know, as kids, are now having to take care of these babies who are supposed to be grown men. And so that can be an issue that you have, unfortunately. And so, but there's still hope. Even though these men may have been raised by single mothers, as long as these mothers can provide, doesn't have to be the man that they had the child with, but if they can provide positive male role models, or even if they're young men, they can still be guided, because studies have shown that their brains don't continue, they continue to form till about age 26 or 27. So we can
Mm.
still capture these young men, even though they're out of school, and still provide these positive role models, which we try to do it for Brothers Only in the Villager. The hope is that they can make those changes, that they haven't gone too far down that road. And I shouldn't even say that, because everybody's redeemable. So
Absolutely.
around them and doing that, I think that would be better for them with their interpersonal relationships as well. So
Hmm.
just because someone has a single mom, I was a child of a single parent home, does not mean that their future can't still be bright. In fact, a lot of times it is that way. But yep, moms, I know that you are, you know, trying to raise a man. Don't be too harsh. Don't go too far overboard. But also at the same time, we cannot get into the habit. We have to break that habit of coddling our young men, because they're going to be men one day, and you want them to be healthy citizens and have good interpersonal relationships with people.
Absolutely. So, let's see here. So, I wanted to talk. I guess we'll make a little shift over to some of the other initiatives that you have going on. One that I'm very familiar with and really excited to be a part of with you is 1921 Enclave. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So a few years back, I was online and on Facebook, and I ended up seeing, I was working, but I was also surfing a little bit. And I saw a group of folks who were pushing it out. They were small business owners, African American business owners. And so I inboxed them and was like, you know, I know, and I knew some of them, at least observing them, they had full-time jobs, but they were also working on their craft, working on their baby, working on their business. And they were doing their thing. And so I was like, well, let's see if we can get together. So I met with each of them, you know, brought them together, and, you know, we had lunch, and we said, you know, what is it about you that makes you do what you do? What motivates you? And so out of that, we decided that we were going to start a group to try to bring back Black Wall Street. For those who don't know, Black Wall Street was the Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the early 20th century. And it was a powerful enclave. Because of the circumstances, they had to do business with each other. And so there were doctors, lawyers, insurance persons, banks, movie theaters, they had to do for themselves because of the situation. And the dollar stayed in their community for over a year before it ever went outside the community. They were so
Wow.
strong that there were people outside of the community that was coming in to do business with them.
Hmm.
Well, because of a race riot that occurred, the Greenwood district was firebombed in 1921 on June 1st of 1921. And so as a result of that occurring, it was understood to be the first domestic terrorism incident that occurred in America. And so a lot of folks did not survive. The ones who did, they left, some never to return. And so because of that, I wanted to bring back the spirit of Black Wall Street here in the Midlands and then throughout. And so I called it 1921, and then I morphed it into 1921 Enclave. It's had some growth and development. The folks who originally were with me, although we're still friends, we just decided to make a business decision to part ways. And they're still supportive of 1921 Enclave, but we've revamped it. And so we've created this space for minority business owners where they can come together, they can have workshops, seminars, encourage one another, network. And so we've created also the First Friday events where we meet. We try to meet at a minority business, a venue, typically a restaurant. Sometimes it's a lounge where folks can kind of eat, have drinks, and they can network. They can be intentional about networking, talking about their business, finding out what you do, what I do, and how I can help support you. And so we've been doing that for the last couple of years. So we meet every first Friday of the month. We had our first virtual one because of the coronavirus last Friday. And it was great. It was well attended, and really it was more about networking in the sense of sharing how things are, how you're making these adjustments now, and what you're doing. And what I got out of it best was, and I pointed this out too recently, that with the Great Depression, we're going through an economic crisis now. But with the Great Depression, there were new millionaires that were created out of the Great Depression. And so I believe, and I'm encouraged, that there are going to be folks that are going to start businesses now. There are folks who are going to make shifts right now. People now have time to pause and look at where they are in their business and come up with new things that they're going to do to try to be better and to better serve folks. There are people who are now deciding, hey, I'm going to start volunteering my services. I'm going to start volunteering because I have time now. So let me go ahead and do that. Not worry about the almighty dollar at this point, but just worry about assisting each other. And so that was part of the reason why we started 1921, and it's come to fruition. It's not only for-profit business owners, but also for nonprofit that have minority leaders there. And so, we want to encourage folks to get back to community through 1921 Enclave. So I'm very proud of what we're doing. And we have a team, and saying I consider you part of the team. You're not official, but you've been very supportive of us, and I really appreciate it. All that you do, especially with the chosen few. I love that, the chosen few.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm happy to be a part of it. One of the things that I talk about, I say about Columbia a lot is Columbia, if you're brand new to the city, it's kind of folksy.
Yeah,
And I like the word folksy, not clicky, because
I
it's
don't.
not like, well, we don't want you to be a part of this. But in Columbia, like a lot of cities, it is of the utmost importance that you start to build relationships with people in order to get some exposure. And one of the things that I really take great pride in doing with the Chosen Few is driving people from meeting to meeting to meeting. So not so much a matter of, okay, well, that's 1921 and they're doing their thing and that organization is doing their thing, Chosen Few is doing their thing. When we learn how important it is to turn what we could perceive as competitors into collaborators, then we can all do so much more. So, you have certain resources that I wouldn't have any opportunity to know anything about if I weren't connected to you and vice versa. So if, I show up to an event that you're putting on with 5 to 10 people that never heard of you, they show up and they say, oh man, they're doing some awesome things here. That doesn't take away from what I'm doing.
Right.
And if some of the people with your organization come out to support something that mine is doing or another organization that I'm supporting, in turn, those numbers start to grow in exponential ways, and we can all do we can all do more. We can all do better. We can affect change in the community much faster and much more effectively. Because
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I'll go even a step further. I need chosen few to be successful, because when I can speak about chosen few and try to bring my 1921 Enclave people on board, and they see that you're successful, it comes back to me. It
That's
gives me
right.
credibility. People place trust in me, and I always call you a connector, and I try to be a connector as well and an influencer. And so if I'm connecting people to stuff that I just can't handle, and I'm sending them your way, and then you connect folks, like, again, we all grow, but to be honest with you, you really make me look good. You really do. And I appreciate that.
Oh,
And so,
I appreciate you saying that. I just cut up and have fun and connect people because ultimately, I don't think business has to be all tied up. Of course, there are certain environments where there's a particular decorum and order of services and way things should be done. Of course, you couldn't go into the courtroom cutting jokes and acting a fool like I do sometimes.
no,
But it's like I tell people, when in Rome, do as Romans do. You
exactly.
know, if
Absolutely.
if I went to a meeting where it was being put on with the Nation of Islam, and I know I got to be covered up, I'm not just gonna come in there looking how I would look on a typical day. So I really like to focus on a lot of the soft skills that we miss out on, which are the social niceties and just treating people the way they deserve to be treated. I believe that your vibe attracts your tribe, and that has nothing to do with skin color or politics or religion or even sexuality for that matter. If we can put all of the things that we could use to separate us, if we can put that on the shelf
Mhm.
and be open minded, come to the meeting or the Zoom or whatever the case may be, bring your resources to the table so that you can help someone else, then that 80% of things that we can all agree on, which is we all want to be more healthy, wealthy, and wise. So when we come together now, just like you mentioned now, we all become more educated, more empowered, and more resourceful just by the virtue of being connected to each other. So I just love how your group, like you've got that core group of people that are always right there. And we know just dealing with people from event to event, you're going to see different people. But,
Absolutely.
it may be one thing that's said by one person at that meeting that impacts everyone there, or even if it only impacts one and they carry that back to someone else, it's a blessing and it just continues to circulate and grow. So I appreciate all that you do. You make me look good. I tell people, oh no, yeah, James Shad, I know James. Yes. So, and then what happens with that when we build those relationships is we actually end up giving warm referrals instead of passing off a business card. It's a
Exactly.
much different thing. People go, oh, I don't have any business cards. And it's been so ingrained into us to think that if we don't have things already set a certain way for that professionalism, that we don't build relationships. A business card doesn't equal a transaction. A website doesn't equal a connection. Yes, it makes things a lot easier, for us to say, hey, check out my website at chosenfewworkshops.us, and then they can go and read a bunch of stuff. But people want to be connected. People want to be a part of something bigger than who they are. So I love what you're doing with that. Now, I wanted to go back to your initiatives because you were telling me briefly about the I Apologize initiative that you're doing. I thought that was really powerful. So I really wanted you to talk on that for a moment.
Yeah, so it was an event that I had. It was probably about 18 months ago, where I created this event. It was an experience that we had, and it was at Wild Productions on Shakespeare Road. They've shifted some things now, but that was the first African American black box theater in Columbia. It was very successful. They put on plays, and so I was able to partner with them. And so what the villager did was we decided to have all men to, this goes back to vulnerability. And so I selected a few men, actually some ended up volunteering, where they wanted to, it's called I Apologize, I Promise. So it's a two-step process. What we did was we had people who embodied the victims or people who were harmed by men. And so these were men who had had certain life experiences, negative ones, And so they decided that they wanted to make a shift. So we had them sit on the stage in front of another person, and that person, they didn't know them, but that person embodied who they were. For example, going back to absentee fathers. Turns out actually one of my frat brothers, he had 3 daughters. They're adult daughters now, and so he was not in their lives effectively. And so he ended up coming down actually from out of town, and so he participated. And so he would sit in front of her. The audience was outside. The audience was out, out front. And so he ended up apologizing. He just, there was no script. He just spoke from the heart. And the young lady actually who was sitting in front of him, there were tears. I cried. I kind of hosted and facilitated it, but it was very rewarding. It was a lot to get off of these men. There was another gentleman who had been incarcerated for committing a murderous act. And so he ended up, he was paroled, and so he ended up coming. He sat there, and he shared with someone who embodied the community, because he ended up apologizing for, poisoning the community, selling these things, harming, getting involved with violence, because it was a drug deal that had gone bad. And so it was sort of his way to, he has a wonderful story, but it was sort of his way to again pay it forward by accepting responsibility for what he had done. And then the second part is, after you apologize, then what do? Now you say, I promise. So it was a shift. I apologize for what I had done, but now I promise to do better. I promise to do this. And I want you to hold me accountable for what you did. So it was a great experience. So much so that I've had, immediately after that, I had folks saying, we need to do this again. And I was like, well, maybe we need to have the ladies do it, because we had the men do it this time. We need to do the ladies. And so I put it out there, and we have a number of young ladies who said, yes, I want to be a part of this, even if they didn't attend, because what we did was we captured it. We had videos. We took photographs as well. And now that you brought it up, I'm going to actually go back to.
You already know. You already know where I'm going.
So I'm going to repost it, and you put me on the spot now, and I appreciate you holding me accountable. So I got to get that. I got to do that again, because it was necessary. And I've had other female-male panels, co-ed panels, where I facilitated those and hosted. I had someone else host an all-male panel for us, because that's what it's about. It's about tearing down those false barriers that we put up between men and women, and we need to get closer so that, again, we can work together to help out our youth. But yeah, I'm definitely going to have another one, a round 2 for that. And as you can see, Miss Nemo looks like she wants to say something. If
that's my cousin Felicia, who's in Greensboro. We talk about this type of stuff all the time. And we've been friends on Facebook for years, so I'm always starting these thought-provoking conversations, and some of them end up with 300 and 400 comments on it. I'm like, man, they like saying you got to have your own talk show. I'm like, man, we'll see what happens in the future, but I realize that I've taken on a lot. I partner with about 5 different companies, so I'm actually going through training for 5 different companies right now. But I would love to. Well, I mean, you've already got the platforms going and things. So I would love to support what you got going on, and we'll talk some more offline about how we can partner up and make some of these things come to fruition consistently. And I mean, you're an attorney and you got all this different stuff going on, so I know it's a lot. We talked about like the group. The groups that we have, and not letting them just become online bulletin boards. But, if you got a nonprofit, you want to have a nonprofit in deed, not just in word.
That's right.
So, rather than me stretching myself out, I definitely will look forward to us connecting, more often and seeing how we can go ahead and get these things coming together, because no, we don't know how much longer we're going to be in this new paradigm shift, but that doesn't mean that we can't continue to facilitate some healing and reconciliation in the community. Like you were talking about, those false barriers between the genders and even between generations, I see a lot. A lot of times you got older people that don't really want to help the younger people because they're like, oh, well, y'all don't want to learn nothing and y'all this and y'all that. We're a bunch of individuals. And I always talk about how we are all products of our environment, our exposures, and our experiences. So if that's true, then we have to pick all those little pieces apart, acknowledge the trauma, the grief, some of the bitterness, some of those scars, and it doesn't undo what has happened. But like with I apologize workshop, that's powerful. That brings about change in people in their hearts and minds. So I mean, you doing some ministry, brother. I just I got to get behind that. So I know just with, like you said at the beginning when we first started talking, just being able to pause and slow down and evaluate where we are, not just in business and not just as far as cash flow goes, but also see where we are internally, where we are spiritually, mentally, emotionally. So there's a lot of moving pieces there that need work. And if we can, not if, but when we start to correct those issues, then we start to see growth in other areas as well. I also wanted to say too, Phoebe, if you wanted to post a comment or a question or something in the chat, feel free to do that, and we'll bring those questions up as well. Just for the sake of moving through quickly, because we're gonna cover a lot of ground here, and we're actually looks like I got about 10 minutes left on here. I don't want to hold you too long, James. We talked about an hour, so I don't want to drag it out too far after that. So since we only got 10 minutes, I really want you to focus, really want to talk more about your law practice, because I know a lot of people don't just have regular opportunities to sit down and talk to an attorney, ask questions. Sometimes there's things that aren't that difficult, or it could be a simple solution to it, but you just don't know, and sometimes we'll assume and go the wrong way with it. So would you elaborate a bit on your law practice? What are some of your favorite type of cases? What were some of your big victories, and what are some of the things that you might have done a little differently if you had more perspective like you do now?
Sure. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about my baby, which is practicing law. I've always wanted to be an attorney since I was in the second grade, really for three reasons. One, I love to argue. Two, I used to question authority even at that age, and so this was one way to do it in a productive manner. And three, I thought lawyers made a whole lot of money, and I wanted to make a whole lot of money.
Right.
So I will say this: I have helped a lot of people out. I still love to argue. I get paid to do it now, and I'm still working on making a whole lot of money. But we've lived a comfortable life thus far, serving a lot of people. And the areas that I've really tried to focus on are families. And so I do a lot of family law work. And some people need to understand too, when you're handling someone's divorce, you're also assisting them in freeing themselves potentially from a marriage that they see as dead end. But it gives them a chance to pick up their feet, get on their feet, pick up the pieces, and then have a wonderful life moving forward, which could be with another person. And it also assists them if they're in a custody situation to make sure that their children are in a stable environment, make sure that folks are behaving or acting right. And sometimes we got to get the court to order them to act right so that
Right.
we can make sure that what's in the best interest actually occurs. And so I love to help folks with adoptions, putting families together that are non-traditional folks. They weren't born from them, or maybe a step parent who now wants to, adopt. They've stepped up in a sense to adopt that child. And so I assist the child in freeing themselves up to be adopted. So those are really the fun ones. Family law absolutely can be, very emotional, very, very taxing on folks. It can be an expensive situation, not only in terms of money, but, the mental part of it. And a lot of attorneys don't want to even be a part of it because it's so emotional. And people like to project their emotions on you because they're going through a tough time in their lives. But for whatever reason, I enjoy doing it. I also, have my fair share of criminal defense work where I assist people who have been accused of crimes. A lot of them have done it, and so they want to me to assist them in reducing the exposure that they have so they can get back to their families. Again, it's all about families. They may have to go sit down for a while, but I may also be able to assist them in getting a probationary sentence so that way they stay out in the community, continue to still take care of their families. And then I help people who are injured in accidents, people who have been injured through no fault of their own, car accident, workers' compensation, medical malpractice case. Someone has done something wrong to harm them, and we want to get them back on track. And a lot of times that is with money. Money can assist them with their bills. Money can assist them. They need to get healing, and so but they're incurring medical expenses, and so this is to take care of that, and then to assist them, especially if they have permanent injuries, so that they can continue to do well for themselves, because they may not even be able to work, or their life has been altered to the point to where they need proper money, proper resources to assist them moving forward. And so, I enjoy doing that. I've stepped into now for the last couple of years, assisting business owners, especially small business owners, that they can have access to court, access to justice. A lot of times as small business owners, we know we may have people who are not paying a bill, who are not paying their invoices. And if you're in business long enough, you may have contract disputes with other business owners. Well, you want to make sure that you protect the baby that you've been taking care of for quite some time. You may need an attorney.
Absolutely.
Even if that's just giving you the proper legal advice, because as you say, you may not know, and you may operate, I hate to use the word ignorance, but you may operate out of a lack of knowledge. All you needed to do is just pick up the phone, have a consultation with an attorney who knows what they're doing, who can give you the proper advice. You can apply that advice, and then you may go a long way. It may save you from a lot of things in terms of risk. And so you want to have an attorney that's passionate about what they do, that's willing to assist you in doing it, and I make it affordable for you. So I love those kinds of things. The most rewarding, I guess, cases are where you see that someone has turned their life around because you have assisted them either avoiding court, or you go through the court situation, and we use the court to our advantage, the rules and the statutes and the laws that are in place to assist you. So those are rewarding, just to hear that thank you from folks saying that, you helped me. And I really want that. It's not really about the money, it's about service. And so just to have people thank you for what you've done, it's extremely rewarding.
Absolutely. Now, Felicia had a question. She says initiative and how to promote it virtually and engage teams. So did you want to make a comment on that?
I believe she might be talking about.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Felicia.
Yes, I apologize, and I'm kind of like, go ahead.
I didn't mean to.
No, you go ahead.
I can either leave the TV here and just take pictures.
Okay, so I'm gonna mute that back. So what else did I want to ask? Oh, I know very recently you became a mediator, right?
Yes.
Did I read that right?
Yes, I'm so excited, and now I'm certified too. So the Supreme Court has certified me to be a family court mediator. It's just another way of me helping families. And so what I've done is I took a 40-hour course very recently, and went through it with a number of attorneys and a couple of non-lawyers. And so what I am now able to do is to assist families, folks who are going through a divorce, going through a custody battle. And I love conflict resolution. I've actually been doing it already as an attorney, but usually I'm an advocate, and I'm helping my client, guide them through the process. So while we are litigating and we are fighting cases, at the same time, we also know that we have to go through mediation. In South Carolina and family court, you have to go through mediation. And so I kind of guide them through the process. But the role I play now is that I can be that mediator. So I can bring folks together with or without attorneys and see if we can come to some resolution of the conflict. And a lot of times it's more so than what the legal part is. It's about, hey, you hurt me when you did this, and now this person has heard you. They have it from your perspective. Now that we've put that to the side, let's see what we can do for these kids. Let's see what we can do to, I can assist you financially because I have the financial resources to do so. I'm no longer hurt by you. Let's see if we can, transact business so that we both can be at peace and be calm. And so it's vital to have a mediator who has that experience. I've been practicing law for the last 20 years to kind of give you some insight and kind of help you resolve your conflict so that you all can be better persons and hopefully better parents and maybe even friends.
And it's quite possible. So let me ask you a real specific question about that. Is there, do you see a potential there to help families decide on like a financial support type of agreement that could possibly avoid the child support system being involved? So that's something I've seen a lot of. Like I said before, I have a twin brother. I have sons, and um, going in the Army after high school and working in barbershops for many years, just seeing how devastating it can be when you can't have an agreement between two people who made a child together. So it says there was a connection at some point. I see both sides of it because I've definitely been a single mom without financial support, but I've also seen really good guys working really hard to support their children, to be there and be involved in their lives. And say you already have a child support order in place where he loses his job or his income changes, or sometimes really just a matter, honestly, of women being vindictive. I've heard conversations that just chill me to the bone, for just for the sake of people using the system, as a weapon, and opposed to saying, okay, this is for my child. We're going to agree on this amount. Let's work together. What would you say to that? And as a certified mediator, are you in a position to help facilitate that process as an alternative to the child support system?
Absolutely. And so, you can have child support that is agreed upon. And so as long as the parties are well informed, they know what first of all, they have to be honest about their finances. And then they can make an informed decision and come to an agreement, memorialize it, put it into writing, sign off on it. And they can actually take that to the court and say, we've come to an agreement on child support, Judge. And the reason I tell folks to still put it in writing and have it court ordered is because you want to make sure that you have some teeth behind it. Because you can sign the agreement, you have all good intentions of going forward with the agreement, but then something may happen, or you change your mind, or people outside of the meeting room, the mediation room, decide to say, hey, you're paying too much, or you didn't get enough money, or what have you. And then you say, well, maybe I did do something wrong. And so you fall back on your obligation to do that. And so then that, causes a problem. It causes further litigation. You got to go to court now, and it's unenforceable. But it's enforceable when you have it signed off by a judge. Judges applaud conflict resolution. They applaud mediation and arbitration. You do not want, what I tell folks, you don't want to have this stranger in a black robe to tell you that you have to take care of your child, because you may not like what they say. But with mediation, you absolutely have the right and the power and the duty, really, to become self-aware, self-determining, and you get to decide your own destiny, your own fate. And so you'd rather do it where two folks can put their heads together, well, with the mediator's assistance, and carve out an agreement that works well for both sides. You may not end up having to pay as much. The flip side is, that you're going to get guaranteed money because the person has promised to do so, and the judge has agreed to it, as opposed to going through lengthy litigation without getting any support at all for quite some time. And then what you also want to do is make sure, because people's economy changes, and you want to have something built in where, hey, when things go wrong, let's get back together, come back to the table so that we can come to an agreement again, rather than getting the courts involved, rather than getting the cops involved, because the cops are going to come get you because you hadn't paid. And then it's just, it becomes a snowball, because this person's in jail, you're not getting any money at all, they lose their job, and the bill is still running up. And so you want to try to, let the emotions go, try to make sure that we're taking care of this child or these children, and do it in a healthy way with a mediator to assist them. And so, I'm all for it. I'm a big proponent of it. And that's part of the reason why, I took the class, so that I could, assist families.
Awesome. Thank you for addressing that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up, because I know Either we're right on the money with the time. So I wanted you to leave us with any final thoughts that you wanted to impart, and anything that you've got. I know you got a book club that's going to be happening April 24th, or I think I meant to look at the date on your page and just make sure we got the date right. But I know they can also find you on Facebook, and I wanted you to leave your information and give us any final words that you wanted to leave us with.
Sure. And as you're talking, I'm trying to find it in our page. Shantae Williams has been assisting us in that, and she had the great idea that while we are, at home more now, it'll be a great time. And, I said we're lifelong learners, that we can educate ourselves and kind of build ourselves up. So it's an inspirational book by Dr. Miles Monroe. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull it up, but of course it's not cooperating with me. But we do have a book club that we just began. But they can go to 1921 Enclave, like the page, and there's information on there. And I'll have Shantae post something soon on there as well about the book. And we're encouraging folks to go ahead and order the book now. My understanding is that Amazon Prime is working well. There's not a delay in delivery. You should get it in about no more than 3 days. But we want you to read, take notes, and then I believe it's April 24th, we'll have a Zoom chat about it. And of course, Felicia's asking about the book. I will get it, or I will get Sam to get it to you as well, because of course, again, this is still not cooperating with me.
Right. We want to get the words just right so we don't have you looking for something that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
I'll jack up a name in a minute. I'm trying to tell you, it'll be in bad shape up to me. But we definitely want to make sure that we find you on Facebook, and he is James Shad on Facebook. So if you're my friend, all right. If you're my friend on Facebook, definitely want to go ahead and find him on there. Yeah, that's the group, 1921 Enclave. As you see, he's got a good following on there. So what we'll do is, as we're wrapping up, did you, James, you want to go ahead and leave us with some parting words or anything else to share?
Sure. And again, it's James Shad, and it's Shad Law Firm. You can like that page as well. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, on IG, on LinkedIn. As I stated, the Shad Law Firm, 1921 Enclave, Villager by J. Shad 3. Those are all my pages. And so again, I encourage you all to stay strong, stay safe. If there's any person that you know that I can help them in South Carolina, I'm only barred here in South Carolina. I assist anyone. It's a statewide practice, but again, it's about service. That's my for-profit. But what's more rewarding is helping to serve, and I encourage you all to do the same. So thank you, Sam, again for this platform. I really appreciate it. And let's just keep working, y'all.
Of course. And could you go ahead and give your phone number and your website?
Yes. And so the web address is shadlawsc.com, SHADD lawsc.com. Our office number is 803-771-7460. That's 771-7460, area code 803. So give us a call. We're doing phone consultations at this time as we're practicing physical distancing, but we can do everything. The courts are down now except for emergency hearings, so we can do everything that we would ordinarily do anyway for you. And so, the show still must go on, so we're definitely doing what we can to do to help you.
That's right. So at this point, I'm going to unmute everyone's mics, and anyone that has a question or you want to say something. So James, this would be the time, right? Hold on.
And the name of the book, as she's doing that, the name of the book is The Power of Vision by Dr. Miles Monroe. And I'm putting that in the chat as well.
Awesome. All right. Did you guys have anything to say, add, or ask?
I do have something to say. Good afternoon, James Shad. Thank you so much for hosting this. And I apologize, I've been socially torn in about 100 places this morning, but I definitely wanted to get on because Cassandra has spoken so highly of you. So thank you so much for just, I'm grateful that you allowed us to take part in some of your time in this day to be able to just talk a little bit. And I was listening to when you were talking about the Apologize, I Promise initiative, and that really kind of like sent a bell off for me. And I heard you talk about how you all had an event where the men came in and they had to do an I apologize for, and you had a person standing in as whatever or whoever or what community or person they were apologizing to, and the I Promise to initiative. And that really stood out for me because I was just sitting here with my daughter who's 18 and my nephew who's 19 having a similar conversation, you know. And so what I was wanting to ask is if it was possible, you know, in such a platform as this, to possibly have an I Apologize, I Promise initiative. I think it will really reach a lot of people. And I believe that a lot of people would love to hear. I know I definitely would love to hear more about that or take part into something like that, because it really, you know, a lot of people are in pain, you know, emotionally and spiritually, and are going through a lot in this world, particularly now where we have time to think, you know, and really just start to evaluate our lives, where we are, where we've been, and where we would like to go. I think it's important to heal, you know. And so, you know, I just wanted to just kind of ask if you would possibly consider maybe doing something like that, and also involving and engaging teenagers. You know, our
Yes, ma'am.
future, they're really, they have questions, and, you know, I talk to them every day, and there's just a lot that they are not getting from the older adults. We're kind of in our own space, but no one's engaging and bringing in these teens who really need us, I believe, you know, more than anything right now.
You're absolutely correct. Thank you so much, Felicia. I hope it's okay to be informal with you and call you by your first name.
Yes.
You are absolutely right. In fact, and I meant to say this, while we are also going to have one with the women, I've gotten feedback from folks that said, we need to have this for teens. We need to have teens there to also be recipients of men and women apologizing. At that event, we were blessed to have some mothers who brought in their children to experience this as well. And like I said, it was heavy. It was also uplifting. And one thing that I knew that I needed to have the next time I did this, which, and I apologize that I didn't do this before, is when you have people who are unloading, who are sharing this information, you know, this is emotional for them, this is mental for them, and it was affecting people in the audience. So one thing I got to make sure that I do this next time is I don't want to leave people who, after they have come up, perhaps there's some trauma that has been triggered, and not have mental professionals there. So that was one thing that I learned, to make sure that we had someone, or a number of people really, who are available, and we even carve out some time where, hey, we don't want to just send people back to their cars and they to go home and you don't know what's going to happen as
All shaken up.
Yeah. And so we got to make sure that we have folks that are right there, at least available, so that they can have those conversations with folks, and then that hopefully can continue to heal them. But I'm applauding you, Felicia, for that, for reminding me that that's what I need to do.
Right.
And as San said, I just need to make sure that I have the team ready and prepared, because I'm just one person, and I'm humble.
Let me on. I would love to be a part of that. You know, that is very dear and close to my heart. You know, what, and in whatever way I can serve, in whatever capacity, definitely keep me in mind. This is something that, I mean, you're hitting a very like sensitive spot for me right now. Like, that's something that I have forever, you know, Sam knows, you know, these are conversations we have all the time. So that definitely is something that I would be more than interested in serving.
Well, it'd be an honor to have you on board. I really appreciate that. And like you said, we may even be doing it by Zoom. You know, we're all connected. We really are.
Yeah, definitely can look into, you know, like you say, getting mental professionals in place during that event that can really be there to have one-on-ones, you know, with people, and, you know, off to the side conversation. There's a place in Zoom where you can set up separate conference rooms, you know, phone calls, you know, so many ways to do that. And so, yeah, definitely.
And likewise, I would like to say, thank you, Cassandra, and, for this platform because, I'm in Savannah, well, this side in Georgia, and, I wouldn't know otherwise of, great ways to lend, my talents and lend the things that that I love to do. So to hear you talk so passionately about working with children and also about, a positive mindset, and it's all about how they see themselves and things like that, is very touching to hear, because sometimes people can set the expectations on achievement or the expectation on how this person does on a test and all of those things, and not put the most important thing to the forefront is what they see and what they think and what they experience as their reality. So I certainly appreciate that and would love any opportunity to be a part of that as well, in teaching young folks how to engage the most powerful tool they have, which is the mind. So, in any way that I can be helpful, I would love to throw my name, my hat, my talents, and my experience, in there to connect and to help, especially seeing that, we can do this on a broad scale and get, some kids really connected and really seeing that they're not alone. So thank you so much for being so open and sharing, what you do and how you do it.
Shay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm honored.
Anything, Rob?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Shad, Ms. Cassandra, thank you again. This was great. Now, Mr. Shad, if I could ask you, I can tell you're very community minded, and I was glancing at your website on my phone while this was going on. I also noticed you're involved with this Appleseed organization, the Legal Justice Center, and among other things. When I drive for Meals on Wheels, when obviously we can't do it now, but and a lot of my deliveries are in, say, the more distressed areas of Columbia, like North Main Street around there. Is there anything that can be done to assist perhaps some of your missions providing, say, I don't know, maybe affordable housing or something in that area? Because right now, well, I can see it kind of going up. I saw like Mungo put a new homes in there and stuff. But is there some way that can be geared towards assisting community needs, and at the same time, now, okay, this is the mercenary side of a real estate investors association. We're also, I'm trying to get us involved with supporting kids with autism. It's tough, people are, I mean, maybe it's human nature. They say, what's in it for me? Okay, is there some way that maybe the more distressed areas of Columbia can be targeted and at the same time presented in such a way that it'll attract maybe investment dollars? I don't know.
That's a great question that you have, and it goes back to what Sam and I were talking about earlier. About collaboration. A lot of times we are siloed. Everyone has their mission that they are passionate about, and you get tunnel vision, and you say, "Hey, I only want to serve this particular population," without realizing that there are folks in these areas in particular that we should focus on, and you can still focus on them. And so, my initial response would be to have an open mind, to have these groups decide to come together. A lot of these groups are under, and I think it's Together SC, which is sort of the umbrella of nonprofit organizations. And you can do so much more working together. You can, use those grant monies that you have or other funding resources that you have to work together, to collaborate, and to say, hey, we're going to go after this certain group. And you're right, and I appreciate you highlighting the fact, because this, April is Autism Awareness Month. And I have friends who have children who are autistic, and we try to assist them, and we need to try to keep it in people's mindset. Another thing we can do, there's strength in numbers. We need to leverage what we have with our government entities. We need to talk to the city of Columbia. We need to talk to Richland County as a group to say, hey, I'm backing what this person is saying, and this is right in our backyard, and we want to make sure that we assist, including with affordable housing. It does go back to community. We just need to make sure that we kind of, once again, take down those barriers that are up there. Yes, we're competing for grant resources, but we're also competing for souls. And so we need to make sure that we, you know, while we are still in line with our individual missions, it doesn't mean that we can't continue to work together. So I would encourage you, whatever you have going on, again, let's stay connected, at least on social media, and then of course take it off of social media and have lunches, have coffees, where we can get together and say, what can we do now? What can I do to help you? What can you do to help me? And then what can we do together to leverage what we have? Because we'll get the attention of folks. We will be able to draw in those investors to say, hey, the real estate stuff is really beyond me. Only thing I know is in terms of purchasing the house and getting someone to assist me in doing that. But I know that you all have groups that you are a part of where you can say, hey, let's come together. Yes, it's about making money, but it's also about building communities one home at a time. And let's see what we can do to try to get these builders, these developers, to possibly donate some of their funds or donate some of their materials. Habitat for Humanity. Let's see what we can do to try to help build and get people in those communities working, give them hope so that they can then say, hey, this is what I've done, or I'd like to live in a place like this one day. Let's expose kids to something outside of their zip code.
And just to add to that, James and Bob, also, one of the initiatives that I'm working on is kind of a long-term project, but of course, affordable housing is always at the forefront of my mind. Being a single parent myself, being an entrepreneur, and coming from the inner city where, in Richmond, Virginia, your lifestyle very much is indicated, like everywhere else, your lifestyle very much is indicated by your income. But knowing that there are so many different innovative options like shipping container homes and the tiny house community, I'm a huge, I just nerd out on that stuff. So my thought process is getting some investors together and purchasing a big parcel of land and building some shipping container homes and tiny home village where, even if it's not a forever home, at least it's affordable, because after this economic reset that we're in, a lot of people are going to need some assistance. And it's already proven itself to be true that the government is just not set up to support us long term. I'm a huge believer in self-sustainability and self-sufficiency, but sometimes we just need the tools. So, between some of the ideas that I have and the resources and acquaintances I'm sure that you have, Bob, there's a lot that can be done. Sometimes, if one person has the idea and we don't know the whole way, we just go, well, I don't know, and I'll get back to it. But someone else's life and security is dependent on our obedience to the ideas that God places in us. I'm a huge believer in that. So as I'm building relationships, I'm always looking for ways that we can collaborate and put those things together. So James, while you may not know a whole lot about real estate, and I may not know a lot about real estate, Bob is that guy. We connected with lots of realtors and investors and corporations. Corporations are going to need some help, and I've got resources that can help them as well. So a lot of it is really just connectivity, just that sharing of ideas. And when we put our minds together, we can accomplish anything. So let's definitely commit to continuing that conversation going forward.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
I
sir.
appreciate you being on too, Bob. I hope you guys will connect as well, James and Bob.
Yeah, I liked The Villager. I hope that's, well, I don't know what all pages you have, Mr. Shad, but I hope you don't mind. I did like that page. So.
Oh, no, I want you to. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, we'll go ahead and wrap it up and move on to the next step in our productive Tuesdays. But thank you so much again, James, for your time. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Ray. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much again, Stan. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
All right.
you.
Have a
Thank
great
you
rest
so
of the day.
much.
Thank you.
All right, y'all take care.
You too.
Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey,
Yep, I'm
my
still
dad.